see anything.
Mayor Wenzel, this is Matt Johnson, staff planner. I wanted to ask if you'd like to get started. I confirmed last week that there would be 2 more of our HLB members coming. I had not heard anything confirming that from my reminder sent today, so I'd like to defer to you if you'd like to start or wait for a few more minutes.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and start because you did not have an RSVP that they were attending, is my understanding.
Correct. On my confirmation, they responded to my initial RSVP last week, and we do have Mr. Tim Moore here, HLB member.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and get started. I mean, how does the rest of the group feel? I just think that there's going to be a lot of discussion with this topic, and I'm concerned that a half an hour is not enough. So I would prefer just to start, and we can catch people up. Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up. So with that, I would like to call to order this work session of the Forest Grove City Council. It's a joint work session with the Historic Landmarks Board, joint work session. The topic is Downtown Historic Design Standards and Guidelines. In attendance is the Forest Grove City Council, with the exception of Councilor Marshall. Members of our planning department, I see Matt Johnson, and Community Development Director Brian Pohl. There's members in the audience, members from our communication team in the audience. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Matthew Johnson and Brian Pohl. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor. All right. Okay, everybody can see the PowerPoint. This, as you mentioned, Mayor Wenzel, this is our joint work session with the Historic Landmark Board and City Council members to discuss the adoption and creation of historic downtown design standards and guidelines. The purpose today is to reach consensus on common objectives for the downtown historic standards and guidelines, and ultimately to support council goals of addressing long-term growth, continue to support housing and economic stability. So this is a goal excerpt from Forest Grove Forward and some input from the community visioning that became part of that process. From here on out, staff is going to do their best to include, connect the dots to this document with these projects and initiatives that we bring forward. So this first goal that you see is revolving around the economy and envisioning a thriving, inclusive community with a vibrant downtown. And one of the solutions and outcomes for that was to explore exterior and architectural design standards to create a visual identity for our downtown, and then to revitalize downtown and continually promote foot traffic. Part of the community visioning that came from this process, if you remember the word cloud, where it showed the more frequent words in a larger scale and the less frequent ones at a smaller scale. Some of the largest words that you saw as part of that cloud and largest respondent groups from our community was the size of community, small town feel. You saw verbiage in there relating to downtown and local businesses and historic preservation as well. So to set the stage, what is a historic district's purpose? So historic districts are intended to preserve and maintain the character of historic buildings in Forest Grove. They reinforce and protect the defining features of the historic districts and define those visual elements which are common to the district, as well as the qualities unique to the community. Now, the way they define those visual elements is through the establishment of standards and guidelines, and that are ultimately implemented in the development code. This picture you see is from Main Street on downtown. You'll notice a few recurring themes, the continuity, the flow between buildings, the storefronts completely built out, built for the passerby, window shoppers. The spacing, rhythm between windows, the style of windows, they're appear to be spaced evenly, even though they bridge multiple properties, multiple buildings. And other defining architectural characteristics. So the two building cornices that you see on these buildings, and one of them is actually historic, the other is not. The one closest to you on the Valley Art building was replicated. The Ingalls Porter building, I believe, is that one. The older one, that was from the 1890s period. What these standards and guidelines will do will further define these characteristics and ultimately prevent ones that may not be in character or in the time period. Let's say if the newer cornice was built as a Gothic cornice or a medieval parapet, that would most certainly not be relevant from the period of significance, which we'll talk later, but our downtown district is between 1890 and 1940. So our historic districts, we have 3 residential districts. The first one, the Clark District, just south of downtown. You see on the left, the picture on the left-hand side, the larger blob, if you will, was created in 2002. The Painters Woods District just below that in 2009. The Walker-Naylor District on the image in your right, just northwest of downtown, and created in 2011, and our downtown district in 2020. The city adopted guidelines and standards to accompany those 3 residential districts in 2015. And next slide, please. The downtown district you see here, zoomed in, is comprised of 47 properties. And we aim to create specific standards and guidelines for our downtown district. So to describe how we regulate properties today with the addition of a historic district. So first, I want to elaborate and explain how a base zone functions prior to we talk about how a historic overlay district functions. So the base zoning district for our downtown and areas surrounding downtown is town center. We have town center core and a town center transition. But your base zone sets the primary rules for how land can be used and developed. So it includes standards like minimum and maximum building heights, setbacks, minimum setbacks, sometimes maximum setbacks, your density, what is your minimum and maximum density potential for residences. And then, of course, permitted uses, restaurants, salons, offices, residences, etc. So an overlay district, in this case a historic overlay district, adds that extra layer of standards or allowances on top of what already exists. And they're intended to address specific goals, so things like floodplain regulations, historic preservation, design enhancements. The overlay districts do not replace what is existing today from that base zone, but supplement them in targeted areas. So how does the city review these standards for both the base zone and overlay districts? Is through building permitting and site permitting. Then the only thing that we're talking about today for our overlay districts is just the appearance from the street. Anything internal to the building, anything external to the building that's not visible from public right-of-way is not subject to these overlay standards. So we're just talking about what is seen as you either drive or walk through our downtown. So these are some things that a historic overlay does not do. It does not restrict those interior changes or exterior changes as mentioned that are not visible from the street. It does not regulate the way the land is used. It does not regulate density or units per acre. It does not freeze properties in time. does not prevent them from being demolished or redeveloped, and it does not prevent property owners from maintenance or repairs or required accessibility or safety requirements. So an example of all that, I'll do two examples. One with the base zone of the town center zoning that's located just outside of the historic district versus one that will have the town center zoning and also have the historic overlay. So this one is without historic district standards. Let's say a person wants to develop on a vacant lot. They would be required to have a minimum of 2 stories for their development. They could not exceed 4 stories. They would have to build out their building at least 80% of their primary frontage. If they wanted to provide a residential component, they could not exceed a maximum of 40 dwelling units per acre. They would be required to fit within the setback range of 0 feet at the front property line to 15 feet behind the front property line. They would be required to have first floor storefronts to appear open and inviting and engaging to the pedestrian. And it would require signage to be architecturally compatible and contribute to the visual qualities of downtown. Next slide, please. All right. Hey, Jen. No, that's okay. Come on in. So our second example here would be our second example would be that same property, but within a historic district overlay. So your base zoning applies plus the overlay district. So with these historic district standards, these are some things that you may see. The project would be subject to everything that we just mentioned and may require a matching adjacent building setback. So instead of having that flexibility of going between 0 feet and 15 feet, it may be most appropriate to have that visual rhythm and continuity as our downtown exists today, where all buildings are matching at the building setback line. Similarly, these standards may require them to be more than an 80% build out, so not having breaks between the building or the appearance of additional alleyways, again, just kind of creating and maintaining what we have today with that continuous facade through multiple properties. It could list building materials that aren't indicative of the original building or the time period of significance in which our downtown was primarily built. So it could prohibit things like hardy plank, cement board, corrugated metal, or reflective glass block. And then also it could require new builds or renovations, again, just things that are visible from the street, to consider what's around them. So examples of other buildings and that have strong architectural features or a tradition of repeating parts. Next slide. So again, just to drive this home, it's just things that are visible from the street. It could also be from an alleyway if we decide, again, we're just kind of contextually talking about what may apply here. It is inclusive of all properties. So anything within the historic district, there are buildings that are either the state defines as a contributing feature, which would be something that has not been significantly altered over time and is from that time period between 1890 and 1940. And non-contributing structures, which could be one that was built outside of that time period or was built in the time period and has been significantly altered to the point where it is labeled as non-contributing. So new development and non-contributing buildings would also be subject to these standards. So what is a standard versus a guideline? Standards are the development standards that are clear and objective for proposed project design. So they're subject to administrative review to the design standards. These are unambiguous in terms of the review. It's very clear for the property owner to see the path towards compliance. If I do this and meet these standards, I get my permit. It's reviewed and approved by staff administratively. The guidelines allow for flexibility from those standards. So the intent of the guidelines is really to just have that flexibility. They're more loose and specific. Maybe I can't meet the standards as an applicant or property owner due to hardship. Perhaps it's something that just doesn't really align with what my project design, what I desire for my project design. The guidelines highlight the overall intent that they're supposed to meet, and the applicant gets to choose their path towards compliance. However, the guidelines are approved through a public process. They're reviewed by staff, similar to how you would present a case to the Planning Commission. There would be a staff report with a staff recommendation, ultimately with a decision made by the Historic Landmarks Board, in which that decision is appealable to council if the applicant decided. But again, they're able to choose either path A or B with the standards or guideline. So these are as an excerpt from our residential design standards and guidelines. This is what we have that exists today and is enforced through our 3 residential districts. So regarding porches, if you wanted to do a new porch and seek compliance through the design standards, the front porch would be required to be open. It could not be enclosed. It must have access to the street, and it must be a minimum of 16 square feet. The exterior stairs for the porch would really only be allowed for ground floor entrances only, and certain materials would be prohibited, such as steel stairs, concrete type stairs, cable, glass, or vinyl, or metal roofs. An alternative to that standard, which a property owner could choose, they could slightly vary from those exact standards with staying with the intent of the guideline, which would read, the use of porches should be compatible with that of surrounding historic buildings and consistent with the building's architecture, considering other structures, nearby houses and porches, the design of those and what is existing, and if it's compatible with those. So you see that there's this flexibility from the more rigid standards in which offers compliance.
If I may.
Yeah.
Matt, if I may, just you might be sitting here wondering why we're showing you porch standards when we're talking about downtown historic district. And that's because the only standards we have are residential standards. And that's the entire point of this exercise, is that we've got a historic district with commercial properties in it, but we don't have historic standards for commercial properties. And so these are some examples, just sort of like, how we see these come at us right now and how we deal with them. But an example you might see for commercial might be a percentage of glass required on the ground floor or something like that, or window heights required on second floors, or windows required to kind of match the continuity of the surrounding buildings, things like that. But we don't have those, and that's the point of kind of embarking on this journey in the first place.
Had things like Urban Decanter. She did a marvelous remodel, and there was a large discussion of what the bottom mezzanine would be. So there's commercial applications about where the door swings, what's on the floor, windows, and we all worked together. Fix the windows on the front facade, so that was part of the commercial versus swinging the door and things like that.
So as I understand it, with respect to the standards versus the guidelines, if something doesn't meet the standards, then it automatically comes to the Historic Landmarks Board. So then the Historic Landmarks Board has the guidelines as reference. But on the other hand, isn't it true that what they decide is deciding that is what is required? They can decide against or for the change that the property owner wants to make.
Yeah, and obviously, I think one little point of correction is I don't think that if they don't meet the standards, they automatically come to the HLB. They can request that sort of second track, as we mentioned in the previous slide. But yeah, I mean, the HLB has a lot of leeway and discretion to use those sort of guidelines as sort of like, oh, if they can meet the intent of these guidelines, we can approve this, you know. And you having that discretion also should also be noted that the council would have the same discretion if something were appealed that say they didn't like HLB's decision. The council can then use the same discretion to approve or deny. To be frank, though, I mean, I don't think we really had any of these sort of blow up and have huge problems. You know, usually we work pretty well with the applicants and we get an approvable project.
Thank you. So, in fact, when we got these guidelines and standards approved, we had a history of being really cooperative with the appropriate property owners, and that was the basis on which we got these approved, that we would continue to approach the property owner in that kind of environment. So, exactly. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Next slide, please, Mariah. I'll breeze through this one, but similarly, again, with the standards, you'll see verbiage like shall, must, whereas the guidelines, things like should, may, again, allowing that flexibility and just overall in highlighting the intent of what we're trying to do with these standards. So a design standard for windows, you should maintain the original openings, not make them any bigger or make any new ones. The existing materials should be salvaged as possible. The replacement windows should match the materials, we said, so sliding glass units, glass block. Vinyl windows, not appropriate. In terms of guidelines, statement is avoid removing a historic window and blocking the opening or replacing it with a new window that conveys a completely different appearance. So you can see how there's definitely some wiggle room in how that guideline is applied. So Brian started to touch on some of these things. These are some things that you may see that come forward as part of the proposed standards, things that would trigger review as part of our historic downtown. So the building alignment, how they're organized, the storefront and the separation from the second floor, that rhythm and continuity between properties, and your roof shape. Some building components that may be part of those standards and guidelines, your storefronts, your entries and doors, types of canopies, awnings, cornices is the example I mentioned earlier in the presentation, upper floor windows, and building materials.
I just want to butt in here for one more second to go back to that slide. You might be wondering, is building height a part of that? I mean, say that on the bottom image, that building to the right that's being proposed, could we limit that to only 1 or 2 stories because of the fact that the surrounding properties are only 1 or 2 stories? The answer is no, we can't do that. We can require them to use compatible materials, compatible sort of massing and size of windows and things like that. But the base stone, we talked about this already, I just want to kind of drive this home. The base zone still applies. The base zone allows a 4-story building. So HLB does not have the authority to not allow that.
Awesome, thank you. All right, we'll start to conclude here. So the process, kind of what staff envisions this to look like from now to adoption. So the initiation of the project, where we're at now, establishing project scope and goals, identifying key stakeholders to be part of this process, and find a consultant. Staff has secured a grant from the State Historic Preservation Office to hire consultant services, and we will confirm those scope of services. After that, the consultants will likely do a bit of research and inventory, probably utilize the existing reconnaissance surveys that was required for the establishment and nomination of our downtown district, and then research best practices and precedent codes from other cities, and start to begin to identify what those character defining features are of our downtown and how our downtown can continue to function and look and keep that small town feel or downtown is unique to historic Forest Grove. There will be a public outreach component, public involvement, so inform, invite, and collect the data. the people, property owners, stakeholders, as we mentioned, all involved in part of the process. Once all of that is finalized, the consultant will set off and draft the code framework, at which will be pitched back to staff for review and refinement. The HLB will get together and have a work session, also reviewing and continuing to refine the draft code document. And then finally, we come to formal adoption. So we'll have a public hearing, a formal recommendation from the Historic Landmarks Board to Planning Commission, at which point they will make their recommendation to City Council, and Council will consider adoption with our 2 public hearings. So I know I kind of breezed through some of that at the end, but I think I left enough time for questions. Anything about what we covered, or you're comfortable with the process, what success looks like, anything that Council or HLB members would like to say.
Great, thank you, Matt. So before we start going through, are there any questions for staff from anybody? And Council President Valenzuela, I'm going to ask for your help in calling on people in the community auditorium. Any questions? I don't see any hands. No.
Councillor Schimmel has a question.
Okay.
Well, I think I have mostly comments, but I can put them in the form of a question. And I worry about the time, because I suspect there could be easily another 30 or 45 minutes of conversation on a subject. So my first question is a process check. What can we realistically do in 15 minutes in transition? Because there's just so much into this, and I don't believe we have do we have a historic commercial property owner here? That's probably the most glaring absence of that expertise. But I've been talking to a lot of those owners and know what they're thinking and feeling, and this could easily put the fear of God in them doing business here if we didn't do it right. Especially when many of those historic building storefronts are vacant or going through a lot of cycles. So I want to be really diligent with this and not rush it. And maybe it's figuring out what's the process outside of here. Do those interested parties go into HLB to discuss this further and come back with some recommendations, or do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that you're bringing up some valid concerns. And I think that one of the things we can accomplish tonight is some guidance on how we are doing this work. Like, do we want to form a TAC or a technical advisory committee? Are we working with SHPO and the state? And we can give feedback to city staff, and in HLB we can talk about that, and then maybe just kind of like fine tune the process with our recommendations. And I think we have time to do that now. And then if we need more, or we want to see like the timeline, the scope, and how we're engaging with business owners and all those things, then we have another. I think we can also have another work session in August, but I think we can use tonight to highlight those things we want to see happen and allow staff to refine this process and then bring it back to us at a later date. That would be my recommendation. And I see Councillor Gustafson has her hand raised.
Yes. Councillor Gustafson, do you have a question?
Yes, sorry about that. I was muted. I think earlier in the presentation, did you mention that there would be a time for not just community input, but outreach to the building owners and businesses and other parties that would be that would have valuable input?
I think it was for the public, but it was not specified for the owner of the property. That's something that Councillor Schimmel brought up as a suggestion of something that we need to consider, consulting property owners that can give us some feedback for for these guidelines. And
Okay, I thought I saw something in there about outreach to other groups.
Yes, we work hard at trying to get the attention of the property owners and give them a feedback period. So it's built in. When we have something to share with them, we will work hard at it. There isn't always a huge turnout. Maybe with this, there's more of a vested interest in the outreach and the outcome. So, but it's very much a part of our psyche to do this, for the outreach.
thank you. Councillor Falconer?
I appreciate that. In addition to commercial, property owners and commercial people who might be interested in coming in and doing business on a lot of our vacant properties, I would say, housing providers and developers as well. Because I think, one of the things that jumps out to me is that not only fear from commercial developers, but the potential to really discourage the needed housing that we say we want to build in our downtown core. Things that sort of jump out to me, and some of the standards, some of the examples from the other standards that kind of ring out are restrictions on some of the materials. Some of those restrictions on materials might actually be really at odds with some of our sustainability and environmental goals of, creating buildings that are resilient to things like large weather events like fire. Not allowing metal roofs, for example, to me, doesn't really make sense when we live in a forest fire prone area. Sure, I'm just giving an example based on some of the things that I'm seeing there. We don't have any design standards in front of us, so I'm just articulating some real concerns I have about putting restrictions, because every design standard, every review process, those are 2 additional layers of risk, time, cost to a potential development that the city says and that it wants. And so those things are actually working against some of the city's goals. And so I just want to be very mindful of that. You get denied at HLB, you have to hire a lawyer to appeal that process to the city council. Lawyers cost a lot of money. I know how much they bill. And so I'm really concerned about some of that, just generally speaking. Especially what I'm reading is that it will not only apply to historic preservation, which I think everyone would agree is very important and desirable, but it will also apply to new development. And so and I'm also a little concerned that, by using design standards that are sort of a combination of what, sort of like what's the type, of certain buildings, but not all of the buildings are of that type already. So there are certain buildings that I think we would want to preserve that weren't built in 1890. They were built in maybe 1960. But I think they are contributing, and in 100 years they will be historic themselves. And so I think it's really important that we be very nuanced, that we very carefully craft this with all of everything that we've talked about with the input and the process for review, but also keeping in mind the goals that the city has.
So part of this is that we will go to someone that's done it in many communities. So most of these communities have the same. We're not making this up. We're not asking someone to make this from the bottom up.
Okay, yes, Mr.
Can I just respond real quick to that one? A lot of communities have used historic preservation as a weapon to prevent development. And so I just want to make sure that I'm not suggesting that we would, I just can't not say that.
Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Neal?
I can respond a little bit. Several years ago, we had a case come to us, and I'm trying to remember the building just across from Valley Arts as historic with the double columns. What building is that? By the way, I'm Neil Polson, and I'm on the Landmarks Board. Is that the
That's the Masonic.
The Legion or something?
Oh, American Legion? Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so they needed to do the side of their building. They need to refresh that. And the, if you look at the guidelines and also in the standards, they needed to use materials other than what they used. But in light of their concerns and the fact of trying to protect the side, plus it's not on the front of the building, the Landmarks approved the alternate materials that they wanted to use. So I think this comes into, the flexibility. But understand, historic preservation is not without some cost. And I think that's important. One of the things that we have is really a small town feel. And that's like one of the things that is really of concern to the public. And I think it's protecting our historic resources that we can preserve that small town feel. So while there can be a cost, there are also huge advantages to be gained from that. So I think that's also important to keep in mind. And I think the way we can bring those two together is at the same time of discussion and compromise that we worked, with those particular building owners. Thank you.
Mayor Wenzel?
Yeah, I think that, I always like to start at the end result, right? And so what does success look like? What do we want to achieve? Like what I'm hearing is I don't want to speak for other people. So I guess that's the question I would ask the council and the HLB right now is what are a few key elements that we would rate our success with this? How would you rate that? What does success look like?
I think Urban Decanter is a classic example. The developer went through and did a marvelous job of redoing the facade. I don't know if anyone remembers what it looked like before, but he had wood windows in the front, and we asked him, or we told him that he had to put wood to restore those windows. Somewhere along the way, someone had changed out the aluminum windows on the Pacific side, and because they weren't original, we worked with him on the best solution for the building. Would any of those choices been his? I don't know, but that's what we asked for. So I think that we're pretty flexible, but we're very interested in maintaining the core feeling of the downtown.
Councilor Gustafson.
I agree with Councilor Falconer. I think we need to be cautious, but again, there is a reason why we have an HLB, and I think we really need to focus on that. And this was a very highly requested desire of the community. So I'm very grateful that the HLB is flexible, but at the same time, we have a job to do, and we do need to take that into consideration. So I do appreciate the HLB speakers and what you're trying to do, and supportive of that.
Does that address your core? She was asking for an end result. I'm not sure if we gave it to her.
Well, I'm just trying to, I think, what I'm hearing is that there needs to be a balance. Are we achieving our goals with engaging with the business owners and developers and state historic preservation? Okay, so there's that level of like community engagement in this process. Then there's, like, is it I mean, I think that's like the first question, right? Is like, how is this process going to really make sure that all the key people who this policy will affect are part of the process for designing it? And then how do we, balance that with the desire for housing, right? Like the need for housing in the downtown area and making sure that we're not intentional. I don't think anyone would intentionally, but some of our policies don't make it more difficult for people to do business in the downtown or to develop in the downtown. And so I think for me, that's what success would look like, is that we're able to highlight our historic downtown with also making sure that it's still accessible and there's still capacity for people to come in and develop and be successful.
If I may, I mean, I don't know how helpful this is, and this is not a rebuttal to anything that's been said or anything. I think it probably is helpful to, just for illumination's sake, that there are already design standards in the town center. I mean, we do have some design standards. They're just not crafted for, historic preservation. So there's already some level of sort of review, staff review, potential for appeals and things like that. The problem for us on staff has been that we passed this commercial district and all we have is residential standards. So we're sitting here trying to review a historic application, like the overlay is in effect right now. And we're looking at porches and windows and things like that to review a commercial building by. And that doesn't work for us. And so, Angel, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I have seen this weaponized before, and I know what weaponization of historic preservation looks like. We will aim to absolutely not allow that. It is something that we've talked about on staff already, vis-a-vis not just this district, but the residential districts and everything too, that we have to have some flexibility built in and kind of make this an approachable process. So, point understood.
Thank you, Brian.
I guess I have one more question. So this is going to be a pretty in-depth process. So like, I think, how often is this going to be brought back to council and HLB as a joint work session? Or like, how are we going to continue to like be part of this process?
I guess I would first start by saying that the budget for this thing is a shoestring budget. So this will be a very staff-heavy sort of lift. That does not mean that we can't come back to council and everything. At this point, we have not even, have we put out the RFP yet for consultant services?
I wanted to have this work session first.
We're still pretty far away from engaging with a consultant and sort of drafting anything at this point. But I guess it's at the council's sort of discretion how often they want to see this back before them. And I think this joint work session is a really good idea. I think it works well, and so we would be available for any of those.
Okay, so if I may, before you send that RFP, right, we can expect to have another work session about with you all about this. What do you think, Mayor?
Yeah, I don't know if we need it before the RFP. But I'm just looking at the process, right? Establish project scope and goals, key stakeholders. I mean, I don't need to go through it. It's on page 21 of the packet and 22. I just think that what I would like to see is some intentionality of bringing it back to the team to make sure we're still on the right direction, whether that's before public process or public outreach or part of the draft code framework. I feel like somewhere in between there, or even, I mean, I don't know. I just think that I would just like to have checks of understanding and before it gets too far ahead where we can't course correct or, we haven't really been engaging. I don't know. That's my thought right now, but.
I think we can brainstorm this. I mean, you know, the RFP itself will be fairly generic. You know, usually an RFP is like 20 pages of legalese and then 1 page of a scope of work. And that's just going to look like basically we're looking for consultant services to draft some standards. And so it's not going to have a whole lot to it. It could be once the consultant is selected, it could be a kickoff meeting as a sort of joint work session, so that the consultant is very sort of understanding of the concerns and sort of the, you know, what the lay of the land is. That will probably help the process a lot along the way. But that, again, we can brainstorm when exactly the right time is to have another joint work session. But it's got a lot of merit.
Does anyone else on council have, or from HLB in the community auditorium, have any further questions or comments before we, I mean, are you feeling like you've been heard and that some of these things have been addressed, or do you have anything else you'd like to share with staff?
Are there any questions? Comments?
Already
Councilor
past time.
Schimel.
I guess if I had an appeal, it'd be the informational interviews going to the property owners as opposed to an event inviting them in. That's frankly the only way I get an audience with them is going to their office or meeting them at their properties. I'd have that appeal. There's one more. Oh, I think the matching money externally, I think, is important as well. So, for example, the state of Oregon's revitalization grant they use the Interior Secretary standards. I would suggest leveraging Joyce Sears as a technical assistance to how we might craft those, because if we're going to go after matching money to capitalize on our ERA money, then we're going to have to honor theirs foremost.
And to add some reassurance to that, so with us being a certified local government by the State Historic Preservation Office, creation of these guidelines and standards would have to meet those interior standards. So once it goes through the city, provided that it goes through the city and we go through this whole process, the state will review and ensure that there's nothing in conflict with those the interior standards.
Thank you. I don't see any additional hands raised, so staff, do you feel, go ahead, sorry.
No, there are no additional comments or questions.
Okay, thanks. Staff, do you have enough input from us to move ahead?
I think so. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, cool. So with that, I'm going to adjourn this work session of the. Okay, sounds good. So I would like to call to order. No public comment will be taken. The council will take no formal action. The topic is on food and beverage policy. And leading this discussion is going to be our city recorder, Mariah Woods, and our city manager, Jesse Vanderzanden.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, we're logistically getting the presentation ready, and Mariah's going to join me here shortly. I'll go ahead and give some kind of opening remarks while Mariah makes her way to the table. So the Oregon Government Ethics Commission recently had some determinations that stemmed from some questions asked by various cities. I don't remember all of them. I know Beaverton was one. It had to do with principally the providing of food and beverages during meetings, both for either the city council and or staff. And so when the Oregon Government Ethics Commission made their determination on that, it's affected every city. And recently we did receive some legal guidance from Barry Elsner and Hanman, our city attorney, And the last time that we talked to council, we mentioned that once we receive that legal guidance, we'll come back to council and then talk further about what that guidance is and how it may affect city policy. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mariah.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to address changes resulting from a recent opinion adopted by the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, or OGEC. This is, as the city manager kind of summed, this is essentially what happened. There was a communication from cities, and OGEC had this ruling that that interpreted existing ethics codes. So these are the specific situations these are the questions that were asked, essentially. And so the findings were related to these very specific situations. It does note specifically that it does not apply to meal reimbursements for travel, as that exists under different policies, or food that is also provided to the public at large. And then there's a few other specifics on things that didn't apply to. But within what it did apply to, these are what the city has previously provided. So the annual Boards and Commissions Appreciation Dinner, there are 2 employee appreciation events each year, one in the summer and then a holiday event. Council dinners at sessions that occur during meal times, and then food provided for meetings and trainings that take place at meal times for staff. In response to the OGEC findings, the city has ceased providing all such food and beverages. So essentially here we have 2 broad categories. One is appreciation events, again, for the Board and Commission and employees. And then the other is food provided at meal times. The food provided at meal times is specifically regarding food that's provided for the convenience of the city. So anytime there's a training that will kind of take several hours, and it's hard to schedule that in a time that doesn't cross a meal time, especially if there's something that is with someone that the city is contracting with, and the city is paying someone outside to come in. It's oftentimes for the benefit of the city to simply cover employee meals so that we can be there in a bigger chunk of time. Similarly, for council meetings, as you all know, the timing of it is difficult because to encourage the most amount of attendance of public possible, it's ideal to have it after work times, but not have it too late so people aren't coming to council meetings late into the night. So it does end up falling during meal times. So again, these are largely for the convenience of the city that we've in the past offered those types of meals. So this is at the advice of the city attorney. If the council wishes to permit the city to continue providing food and beverages in the aforementioned circumstances, the following actions must be taken. For elected officials, and this is for actually elected and appointed officials, so this applies to boards and commissions, adopt a policy for appointed and elected officials that makes such food and beverages a part of the official compensation package, and then for employees, to update your local government personnel policies to make such food and beverages part of the official compensation package for employees. The city attorney's office has drafted sample policies that address meals, food, beverages, or other compensation provided to officials and employees as a result of performing their official duties. Separate policies have been drafted for elected/appointed officials and employees. The drafted policies would allow for a continuation of past practices rather than constituting new compensation. So there would be no additional cost to the city from what has historically been or previously been paid. So as far as the portion specific to elected and appointed officials, the only thing that's really specific to that, those policies, is due to the conflict of interest laws. This would be considered a pecuniary benefit and would therefore require 3 resolutions. You guys saw this recently with the stipend, but there would be a resolution for the mayor, with the mayor abstaining, a resolution for 3 of the councilors with them abstaining, and then 1 for the remaining councilors. As far as employees, prior to the OGEC findings, staff is actually already working on a travel and business expense policy, just to add a little bit more specificity to our policies there. So kind of comparing the draft policy that the attorney provided with what we had been working on, we kind of found that it would fold in pretty well. So our recommendation there would be to simply add in that policy to the travel and expense policy. For simplicity, and then that policy would be referenced in the employee handbook, which would go before the council. So as far as our discussion on this, we have a couple of different items, but if the council has any outside feedback, we're open to that. Yeah.
Right, I have a question really quick. Would this allow us to do the appreciation, like the board and commission appreciation event, and then also like the summer barbecue we do for employees, and then the winter, because it would cover those two as well.
Yes, it would allow for those specific events in addition to, again, the trainings. And again, that's part of the questions here, if the council wants to continue those events, because we could change the policy, to only include one or the other, or not adopt the policy. But as drafted, it would be to include those events.
Okay, thank you. Council discussion? Anybody? I literally cannot barely see you all, so Council President Valenzuela, you're going to tell me.
Yes, I was a little bit conflicted about this, but like the appreciation to our board and commission event, those things are important. We can bring our sandwich, and our snacks, or have dinner before we come over here. But I think these, events that bring us all together are important, for our work, for the, for staff, for, people that give their time, that volunteer to be part of this, this city, and, are part of creating our community. We should have a way to show that appreciation. So, but me personally, either way, I'm good. And I had asked Jesse earlier, I don't know if you have that number.
I do.
How much we spend on food for us per year.
Yeah, so we put together kind of some rough numbers here this morning. I was talking with Mariah, and essentially, and Mariah said it well, there's kind of two parts to this. One is the council part that has to be adopted if the council is going to provide itself some additional compensation in the form of food and beverage, then it needs to adopt a separate policy for the council to be able to do that. And essentially, as I understand it, and Paul or Mariah, you can correct me if I'm not correct, but it would be, you get so much in a stipend per month, you get X amount of insurance benefits, you get a stipend for an iPad, and you get either meals at city council meetings and ability to, attend appreciation events, and that's kind of part of that overall policy. From a compensation perspective. And then the other part of it is kind of the staff part that Mariah talked about, which is a separate resolution. And that basically would go into the employee handbook, and that would cover food, beverages, retirement parties, appreciations, things like that. And we would spell it out pretty accurately what's in there. But kind of getting back to the council part, in terms of just council dinners, and we were kind of using the overall number of, $20 per meal, 7 counselors per meeting, and I think we estimated 20 meetings a year. So if the council wanted to make meals at council meetings a compensable benefit, the overall cost is around $3,000 for the year. For all of that, that doesn't count if it also includes staff. That's just for the council. If council wants to look at doing a board and commission appreciation dinner, that's for elected and appointed officials, which are also covered under this policy. Typically, what we have done in the past is we've estimated it on approximately 100 people, and that does include allowing a board and commission member to bring a +1. And typically what that has costed is about $25 on average per person. And so if you figure 100 people, that's $2,500 on a per annum basis. The policy wouldn't necessarily reference what the cost is. The policy would just say that you can do the dinner, if you will, because the cost is obviously going to kind of go up every year. And then, yeah, I think that's all.
Thank you.
Counselor Schimmel or Faulkner or Martinez, any
Yeah.
questions
I
or
have.
comments?
As far as I'm concerned, I'd rather not have food for council. I can just do it at home. I know it's sad not to be able to do the meals, the appreciation meals, but then they also are basically, that's part of their salary or I don't know how they would feel about that. I don't know that I
I'm
would
sorry,
like it
Councilor,
as an
but
employee.
You mean like added to it, like a
Yeah.
policy that says, and oh, by the way, you will also be entitled to this amount of meals.
So we
But-
have to charge.
But the board and commissions, what about the board and commissions? They're volunteers, right?
But they would get what, a W-2 saying, or whatever tax form it would be, saying that they received some enumeration.
Yeah, so the board and commission counts because that part of the OGEC findings was for elected and appointed officials. So they're volunteers, but they're considered appointed officials. As far as the taxable issue, that's something else that the city attorney did look into. The essential findings is, for the most part, it would not be considered taxable compensation because it in part falls under de minimis benefits, which is under a certain amount, or if it's difficult, especially something like a potluck or like if there's, what's it called? A banquet where it's not like by plate. It's hard to parse out how much each person actually eats of that. So that falls under de minimis. And the other part is, again, for meals specifically provided on the premises of a business, or in this case, the city, and provided for the convenience of the city. That's also not considered taxable. So it wouldn't be additional in those ways, additional compensation in that way. It's more just kind of the way that the law is written. It says that it doesn't include, it says compensation package.
I maybe add to that.
Thank you, Mariah.
In looking at what's considered a de minimis benefit, Mariah is correct that if you have like an annual board and commission appreciation banquet, and it's kind of a one-time occurrence, that's likely going to be viewed as a de minimis benefit. The way that the IRS looks at a de minimis benefit is based on kind of three factors. One is the value. The second one is the frequency. And if you have a higher frequency with which it occurs, then obviously the value goes up and it becomes less and less de minimis. And so your council meals, because they are on a schedule and because they are more than just one, that could be considered something different. The other and third aspect, again, the first two were value, frequency. The third one is what's called administratability. And basically the IRS rule says that if it costs more to administrate than it does the value of the benefit, that's probably considered to be de minimis. But again, it's not, it's more art than science, if you will, on how that these get applied. And it depends on, in a lot of cases, what the value is, what the frequency is, what the administratability is. If you look at like council dinners per se, and it's on average $20, and you have 20 meetings, then that in theory is around $400 per counselor for the year. That would be a compensable benefit. Whether that's considered to be de minimis or whether you would have to file on that, I would turn to Paul. But it's probably in that gray area. What's not in the gray area is a board and commission appreciation dinner, an annual banquet, twice a year. That's pretty clearly de minimis. There's not a lot of value. There's not a lot of frequency. That's different than something that may happen more times than that. Did you want to add anything to that? Sorry.
Oh, yes. Mayor Wenzel, you wanted to speak. You have your hand raised.
Yeah. I think for me, I would be on the side of adopting a policy, especially if city attorneys in most cities, like on my mayor's mail list, serve like listserv. This has been a huge topic. I think you're going to see most cities doing it. And I guess I'll just spell out my reasons why. The board and commission appreciation. We used to have a dinner. Then last year we did like poo-poos, we call it, or like hors d'oeuvres and a drink ticket at McMinimums is a thank you. I think like when you look at cost, cost analysis, like you have volunteers that, that work like volunteer for the city and do big things for us. And it's really a small cost of the city to say thank you. It is such a small thing to do, and it means so much. And it also allows the different board and commissions to be able to get together and see each other and see what they're doing. And like, it connects us. Like people connect over these social things. And then, I always try to go to the summer barbecue and I wait on our staff and I bring them their hamburgers with cheese or whatever. And I've done that every year. And that's means a whole lot to our staff to like see like, hey, our elected officials like support, like understand that we carry out the policies that they make. Again, it's a really small thing to do to say thank you. And I think that when employees are happy and when volunteers are happy, and for that matter, when we're happy, like I think we do better work. I don't think this is a huge cost, and even for me, like I'm going to be real honest today, like even today, or my meeting schedule was 12 to 2 for WCCC, and then an in-person for Washington County Chair plus Mayor at the Beaverton City Hall. That ends at 4:30. I drive back to council chambers and I'll be there at 5:30. Like most days, if it's not summer, I'm also teaching. And so we are holding dinner, or we are holding meetings for 4 hours minimum during dinner time. And so I guess I just don't see, I think that I do better policy if I'm fed, if I'm like not rushing around. Like, could I make a sandwich? Yeah, but I'm already making a sandwich that day. I don't know. I just don't think it's I think the benefit of having one gives us flexibility. It allows us to thank our volunteers and our staff. And so I'm in support of doing one that's already made by the city attorney.
I would echo everything that you just said, Mayor, and I think it's, especially as we start to embark on a lot of this, I haven't been a part of any marathon meetings yet on this council, but I can tell you that I've been at council chambers past midnight before, and when I also work a full day job, and so any one of us is certainly welcome to decline the meal and to bring our own sandwich if we want. But I do not think that requiring staff to do that makes a lot of sense to me. Requiring planning commission members, I think that we should probably even consider that. When we're going to dig into code, comprehensive planning and code, and those are really, really long. They should be very long meetings. They should be very robust conversations. And most of us work day jobs, and most of us will come directly from our day jobs to come and do this work on behalf of the city. $3,000. I think we have probably spent that money talking about this already. So it's a no-brainer to me.
I have changed my mind. I agree. Thank you for sharing, because now I see, a different perspective. It's not all about saving money, but, I get off work sometimes at 2, sometimes at 3. I have time to make a sandwich, even to have dinner, but some of you do not. So I should have thought about, you and Melinda and others, that work full time. So thank you.
We all have our perspective. I'm sure that there are challenges that other people have that are, that I'm not even seeing, but thank you for letting me share mine.
Councilor Schimmel, we haven't heard from you.
I'll concur with the consensus here. I'm good.
Okay, so there's consensus to move forward with a food and beverage policy. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, and then the next bullet is, would council like to adopt an employee travel and business expense policy that includes food and beverages? Yes.
Yes.
Does the council approve a continuum of meals for meetings during meal times, employee board and commission appreciation events? Yes. Okay. Any additional feedback or questions? Jesse, Mariah, do you have what you need from us?
We do. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to adjourn this work session and then we're going to start call to order this meeting of the Forest Grove City Council. The time is 7:14, and will our city recorder please call roll?
Counselor Gustafson?
Here.
Council President Valenzuela?
Here.
Counselor Schimmel?
Here.
Counselor Falconer? Here. Counselor Martinez? Here. Mayor Wenzel?
Here. Okay, Forest Grove City Council meetings are located on the land of the Tualatin Kalapuas, who call themselves the Atpalati. They are now part of the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde. Will the council and the audience please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Sorry, I'm like, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I apologize for that. I'm sick and completely lost my train of thought. We will now move on to item 4, which is proclamations, and Council President Valenzuela is going to help me out with those.
Good evening. Proclamation. Whereas the Purple Heart is the oldest military award of the United States, established in 1782 by George Washington as the badge of military merit, and whereas the Purple Heart stands unique in its democratic spirit, paying tribute to the valorous without prejudice to rank or social distinction, thus embodying the highest ideals of our nation, and serving as a perpetual reminder of the courage, sacrifice, and dedication of our military men and women, both past and present. And whereas Forest Grove has a large, highly decorated veteran population, including many Purple Heart recipients, and whereas Forest Grove appreciates the sacrifices our Purple Heart recipients have made in defending our freedoms, and believes it is important that we acknowledge them for their courage and show them the honor and support they have earned. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Forest Grove does hereby proclaim August 7th, 2025 as Purple Heart Day in Forest Grove, Oregon, and encourages all citizens to show their appreciation for the sacrifices Purple Heart recipients have made in defending our freedoms, to acknowledge their courage, and to show them the honor and support they have earned. Proclamación. El corazón púrpuro es la condecoración militar más antigua de los Estados Unidos, establecida en 1782 por George Washington como la insignia al mérito militar. Y considerando que el corazón púrpuro es único por su espíritu democrático, ya que rinde homenaje a los valientes sin distinción de rango ni clase social, encarnando así los ideales más elevados de nuestra nación y sirviendo como un recordatorio perpetuo del coraje, sacrificio y dedicación de nuestros hombres y mujeres en las Fuerzas Armadas, tanto del pasado como del presente. Y considerando que Forest Grove cuenta con una numerosa y altamente condecorada población de veteranos, incluidos muchos galardonados con el corazón púrpuro, y considerando que este año se celebra el 10º aniversario de la proclamación de Forest Grove como una ciudad del corazón púrpuro. Y considerando que Forest Grove valora los sacrificios que han hecho nuestros condecorados con el corazón púrpuro en defensa de nuestras libertades, y considera importante reconocer su valentía y brindarles el honor y el apoyo que se han ganado. Ahora, por lo tanto, el Ayuntamiento de la ciudad de Forest Grove proclama por la presente el 7 de agosto de 2025 como el Día del Corazón Púrpuro en Forest Grove, Oregon, y se alienta a todos los ciudadanos a mostrar su agradecimiento por los sacrificios que han hecho los condecorados con el corazón púrpuro, en defensa de nuestras libertades, a reconocer su valentía y a brindarles el honor y el apoyo que se han ganado. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President Valenzuela. Next on the agenda is item B, public comment. Time provided for anyone wishing to speak to City Council on an item not on the agenda or on the agenda but not scheduled for a public hearing. Comments are limited to 2 minutes unless additional time is granted by the presiding officer. The public comment period shall not exceed 30 minutes unless a majority of councilors present vote to extend the time. Zoom attendees may use the raise hand option to be called on. City Recorder, are there any members of the community signed up for public comment?
There is Alice Custodio.
Is it on?
It is. Hi, Alice.
Hi, I like that smile up there.
Thank you.
Before I get started, I just wanted to let everyone know, since the Purple Heart mission is tonight for August the 7th, I was here August the 10th, 2015, when we first initiated the Purple Heart. And so very proud to see that, and I'm part of the veterans group, so thank you so very much. But good evening, everyone. For the past 10 years, Forest Grove Elks 2440 has proudly participated in the Forest Grove Community Enhancement Grant Program. Your unwavering support has empowered countless underserved students to thrive and pursue their dreams. Our legacy of support, thanks to this partnership, dozens of students, 13 dozen this year, we served 4,694 weekend food bags. Families gained access to employment resources and supportive services. Our community has grown stronger by investing in the young people. None of this would have been possible without your generosity. A new call to the community. Tonight, I had come in intentionally indicating that I was not going to apply for a grant this year until I found out that it was delayed without payment until January. So I might have to reconsider that. But instead, what I'm doing is I'm inviting every one of you to join us in this mission. We're expanding our reach beyond the Elks, opening our doors to volunteers, donors, and advocates across Forest Grove. And this is why your investment matters. These are 3 critical reasons for broad community engagement. Student well-being, regular access to food and learning materials set students up for academic success. Family stability, job opportunities, and living wages for parents create a secure home environment. Community property, investing in youth fuels a brighter economic and social future for all of Forest Grove. When you lift one family, you strengthen the entire community. And how can we all help? Volunteer your time, tutoring, mentoring, or serving at our local food bank. Provide in-kind donations. Non-perishable foods, backpacks, and professional attire for job interviews, because we are expanding to try and help the family more than just the students with the school. Offer financial support. Even small, regular contributions have a big impact. And in conclusion, our students are the heart of Forest Grove's future. Together, we can ensure they and their families have the resources they need to succeed. You'll be inspired by their resilience, grateful for their opportunities to make a real difference. Thank you for standing with the Forest Grove Elks 2440 and for believing in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Mariah, is there anyone else signed up?
Carol Allery.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Carol. And I've been sharing my testimony with you, and I'm going to leave you this summer with about 3 little things that are keys. The things that I've learned in my life are forgiveness and repentance. They walk hand in hand. And when you do them, you are set free. To do them and walk without condemnation or fear. You learn, the second one is to walk in humility, which is more powerful than pride. Taking that step back makes me strong. And the third one is no change can come in your life without the salvation of Jesus and his cross, but also his Holy Spirit, who is our helper, our friend, and I couldn't live without him. John 16:7-9 says, and Jesus is speaking about this before he dies, and he's speaking to his disciples. I tell you the truth. It is to your advantage that I go away. And if I do not go away, the helper, my Holy Spirit will not come to you. But when I go, I will send my Holy Spirit to you, and he will come and convict the world concerning sin, righteousness, judgment with truth. Not man's truth, but my truth. That's what I have to share with you today. Have a wonderful summer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Mariah, anyone else?
There is no one else signed up.
Okay, is there anyone on Zoom signed up?
There
Or
are
with
people in the
their-
meeting. Would anyone like to raise their hand on Zoom to speak? There are no raised hands.
Wait, thank you so much for your help with this, Mariah. Item C on the agenda is the consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda are considered routine and will all be adopted with a single motion without separate discussion. Counselors who wish to remove an item from the consent agenda may do so prior to the motion. Any item or items removed will be discussed and acted upon following the approval of the remaining items. What is the wish of the council?
So move.
Second.
The consent agenda was moved by Council President Valenzuela and seconded by Councilor Falconer. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved in a 6-0 vote. Okay, now we are moving on to additions and deletions. City Manager, do you have any additions or deletions?
No additions or deletions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any proposed by council, by councilors? Seeing none, we are going to move on to item E, which is presentations. The council will hold questions until the end of each presentation. A 2-minute reminder will be given to the presenter to conclude remarks. Our first presentation tonight is from the Forest Grove Senior and Community Center update, and it's Maria Cabarlo Rubio from Centro Cultural Executive Director. Maria, will you please come to the front table where the microphone is?
And Mayor,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, if you would permit me, Maria serves as my employer and mentor, and my preference is to honor her in Central by stepping down into the gallery to listen in solidarity. But I'll return.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Councilor Schimmel. Hi, Maria.
Hi. Good evening, councilors and Mayor Wenzel. My name is Maria Caballero Rubio. I'm the Executive Director at Centro Cultural, and with me is Ana Gonzalez.
Yeah, Ana Gonzalez, Director of Health and Wellness and Director of Forest Grove Senior Center.
So we are here today to present our 6-month report for the Forest Grove Senior and Community Center. Can you move the slide, please? So this is my transition team, our transition team, moving into the Forest Grove Senior Center was a joy and a challenge, and we were excited, and we are finally in the implementations phase. So Ana Gonzalez, as I mentioned, is our Director of Health and Wellness, and basically moved her office there. She manages multiple programs at Centro, but she moved in and became the point person, and she manages the staff there. And her team is comprised of about 20 employees that she manages, and all of the contracts that go with it. Got lots of experience. Jonas Colon is our community development project manager. He is one of the best project managers that I have ever met. And so he did a really good job in helping move along the project. And we also had Javier Castro, who was our facilities director. Move to the next one. Okay, thank you. So I wanted to just give you a short, really brief recap. Promise it'll be a minute long because I want to give Anna the opportunity to talk about the actual programming there. So we got our keys. We received the keys for the center. This was actually December 31st of 2024, and by January 7th, we opened the doors and continued the existing programming. We're really proud of the fact that we were able to not have a long gap in services as we moved into that program. So as we moved into the transition, we started by identifying activity leaders, learned that there was so much activity that was going on there at that time. People were excited. They came in. They did their programs, and so it was interesting to learn about all of those and identify who the leaders were, so that we could go ahead and do some updating of agreements. We wanted to make sure we knew who was in the building, what programs were available, and what the needs were for them. We also did some assessment of our internal facility infrastructure, and we also made some repairs. We did find some deferred maintenance that really, really needed to be done, and we made the repairs to the tune of about, I think, $17,000. And there are still some more that need to be made, but we're happy that those are done. Things are moving along really well, and with all of those done. And also, we were getting to know members and assessing the needs of the members that come to the center every day for services, for social activities, and for lunch. We've also been applying for funding. To date, we have applied for and received $102,000 towards staff. Part of that funding is to pay for the manager who runs the program on a day-to-day basis, and then the other is for social connection and physical and mental wellness for the seniors who come to the center. We've been also moving programming resources from Centro proper to the senior center. And now we have, Anna will talk about this, that we have folks there who are trained in helping people apply for health insurance and many other programs. And lastly, creating policies and implementing systems to make sure that we have a high-functioning and efficient program. I will now turn it over to Anna. Next slide.
Thank you. As the executive director mentioned, we started operations in January, and our goal was to get to know more the community. So we started with our first listening session. It took place on January, and the idea was to hear about the community. You may recall that in December, there was a lot of questions about Centro coming into the Forest Grove Senior Center. So we just wanted to create that relationship with the community. Next. And as you can see, it was a total success. We got more than 100 seniors and members of the community. You'll see on the pictures, Jonathan and myself connecting, trying to facilitate the conversations among the community and the clients with us. We invited Disability, Aging, and Veteran Services, DAPS, from the county, so they could come and offer more services and start building those relationships too. And you can see in the last picture, the executive director, Maria Rubio, giving the presentation and the message to the community members. Next. We focused on, again, listening to the community, and you'll see some of the feedback. We got a lot of them, and I am more than happy to share if needed. This is just a sample, and what we understood is that people wanted to hear more about the services, if the programming was going to continue, how important was Right Connection, Meals on Wheels, and the other services that were provided. They were also focusing on developing more programming, and that's what we started to focus on. So next slide. So once we gather all of this information, we were able to do our second listening session. As you can see, that took place on April 2025. So we took 3 months just to gather and try to put all the programming together. And on April, we shared the updates with the community, same that I'm going to share with all of you. Next. So first of all, we created a team, and this is actually the current team that runs the Forest Grove Senior Center. Using myself, we have the manager on site, Melissa Garcia, who's wearing the yellow shirt. We have another administrative assistant, Amy Lawler, and our Rotary cook, Diane McLean. They are always there in the building, and we are always helping and working. As mentioned before, I am the director, but I'm overviewing multiple programs, and the manager is there to facilitate the day-by-day operations. Next, we couldn't do this work without the amazing volunteers that the center has, and that's why I wanted to highlight the efforts and their commitment to us. They were there to provide us support, guidance, ideas, and just be there to facilitate the day-by-day operations. And we are still getting more information about volunteers, and we are more than happy to take more volunteers. Then, next slide. Our first goal was to do the calendar, and as you can see, we started operations on January, and by February, we already have a calendar with all the activities that were happening, and from there, we just started to move them among the community. We distribute the calendar by mail, printed copy, and electronic. Then, next slide. You'll see this is the actual calendar of this month, and we focus on having activities from Monday to Friday, and Sundays, there's different activities happening around the building. So again, everybody is welcome to grab this information. It is in our website, social media, or they can just go say hi to all of us at the facility and they can get it. Next. And with that, we also started our Facebook page, which the idea is to have the Facebook page that is the Senior Center, and the community can gather all the information. The link or the URL is there. People can grab it. And again, you have the information about Meals on Wheels, the newsletter, the calendar, or any other activity that it is happening. We also started the newsletter, which was one of the things that the community was more interested in. So the newsletter started to distribute on March, and currently we have 100 people that are receiving this newsletter at their homes, and we have 20 that receive it via email. We work with volunteers, we work among all the members of the community and employees at the Senior Center to put together all of these activities. We focus on having topics that are proper for the community, for the age information that they may need. We have recipes and, everything that might facilitate the well-being and their day-by-day. Next one. Thank you. We also started the operations with Bingo, and we started to promote it. The Bingo took place on Tuesdays and Sundays. Just wanted to do a parenthesis that as of right now, Bingo decided to take the program to another location. So we don't have Bingo anymore, but the last activity was on June 29th. Then we also launched the website where the community can also get more information about the building and the programming and services. We resume operations with Larry and Norma, who actually run the pantry at the Senior Center, and that was one of the concerns of the community. So that is also taking place on Thursdays and Fridays. Another of the programs that was also very demanded was the Scythe Yard Garden, and also that is already running. As of right now, all the beds are taken. The donations, there was a lot of people that wanted to donate $1, $5, and we also facilitated the donation boxes around the building. So we are continuing operations as it was before. Okay. Thank you. We are also implementing the wellness program. And on that, we are focusing on the community to get access to Medicare, Medicaid information. We have agents that are coming to the building on Thursdays, and they are just there to facilitate any conversations, clear out questions, or help with enrollment or navigation if needed. We have also the participation of Red Cross, and we have a blood drive that is happening every month. And last but not least, we partner with All of Us, which is an organization that is based at the East Coast, and they are doing a mapping of how are the health and the concerns through DNA. And they came to Forest Grove Senior Center on the dates that are listed in there, April 22nd and 24th, and where the community was able to gather information and just to learn more about what is the project about. Next. We also implemented the food bag delivery. As mentioned before, this is a service that is happening already at Centro Cultural, and we just brought it to Forest Grove. So we understand that one day is not a good day for all of us. We might be coming out of the hospital and we don't have the opportunity to go to the store and grab our groceries. So the community can come and enroll with us, and we can deliver a food bag with everything that they may need. This is run in partnership with the pantry that Centro has. It is a great resource, it's free. They just need to come, and we put them on the list of for delivery. Thank you. We also resume operations with the community events. That was another concern that the community had. Friday dinners was the most popular, and they just wanted to continue with those activities. So our first Friday dinner was on June 13th. Our theme was an island night. And we already have scheduled the following ones, which is on September 19th, and the other one is on February 6th. As you can see, there's a lot of time in between of each one. And that is because we also heard that other members of the community were more interested on the breakfast dinner. So what we do is having one each month so we can balance and serve all the community. So our first one was on May 9th, and we celebrated mothers. It was a beautiful event, and all of us sponsored that activity, so it was totally free for the community. Then we have July 18th with the Derby Hat Social. We are expecting a lot of fun. Everybody will come with their hats. We have tea, cup of coffee, and some cookies just to snack and gather. Then we have August 8th, November 7th, and January the 9th. Next, thank you. So this is just an example of how we experienced the Friday dinner. It was an island night. We have the menu that was catered by a chef that actually works already preparing the food for the elders. We got around 80 seniors, and we have different presentations and activities. They really enjoyed it. And then we have the Friday breakfast, as mentioned before, that was on May 9th. And we got around 50. And again, it was just a beautiful event just for them to gather. We started to see Latino community coming into the building, and suddenly we just heard that they used to work with another person. They met them at that organization where they used to work, and they didn't know about them anymore until that moment. At that breakfast, that's the moment that they met each other again, and they just connected. So this is a wonderful activity and space. Next. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a pause in there and just say that we are also partnering with the Chamber. I know they are here, the Forest Grove Chamber of Commerce, and we hosted the Rise and Shine event that happened on June 5th. I just want to say that, as you can see, the programming is already running, and as of right now, our priority is going to be the community center. Why? Because we also received a lot of concerns that we were focusing a lot on the senior center, but now we are going to be resuming the community, which is the rentals and other activities that may happen or take place in there. That is not necessarily for the elderly community. We had a couple of months a meeting with Forest Grove to explore activities for the youth during fall and winter. So we are still in the works, but the idea is to make this space a place for everybody. But we just have 6 months, so expect more. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Maria. Any questions from the council? Councilor Gustafson.
More like a comment. I just want to say you guys have just done a fantastic job, and I've heard nothing but positive from many people from many different areas. So the programming that you've got just out of the gate is fantastic, and I love hearing that you're going to add some programming to that. So I appreciate everything that you've done.
I want to also congratulate you. You have done so much in so little time. Everything is well organized. People are happy. Community members, our seniors are enjoying all these activities, having a social life. It's amazing the work that you have done. So I want to congratulate you for all the hard work that you have put into making this a success.
Yeah, and I would also, congratulate you, and say thank you. The reality is that the city of Forest Grove is really grateful to have partners like you that show up for our community members. We needed help, and you signed up and helped us and are succeeding. So, building relationships, offering key programming. I just think we're really lucky to have you as a partner, and I just want to say thank you as well. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, have a nice night, ladies. Thank you. Our next presentation is from our Chamber of Commerce Executive Director, Claudia Yakos, on the Business Development Center update. And I think she'll be coming up. Good evening, Claudia. I'm going to say, is Amanda with her as well? I can't see from the back.
Well, good afternoon.
Hello, good evening. Whenever you're ready, Claudia, you can begin.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Claudia Yakos, and I'm sitting here with our Business Development Director.
Good evening, Mayor Wenzel and City Councilors of Forest Grove, City of Forest Grove. My name is Cecilia Giron, and I am the Business Development Director with Forest Grove Cornelius Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for having us.
Buenas noches al alcalde Wenzel y también presidente del Consejo, Mariana Valenzuela, y al Consejo en general. This isn't going to be a bilingual. However, we did want to thank the City Council, and we did want to thank the Community Enhancement Committee that provided this opportunity for us. It was a very meaningful grant, and the grant is already just doing wonderful things in a time frame that we weren't expecting, but we knew that was necessary. So we've worked really hard to build something that reflects the heart and diversity of the community. And we're starting to see the real progress. So your investment is helping to turn big ideas to real opportunities for our entrepreneurs. We're just getting started, and we're just very grateful for your support. I have along with me, right next to me, just a powerhouse of an individual who has experience not only with Centro Cultural, but also with Adelante Mujeres, and just a mover and a shaker, whom the community trusts. And so I know that that's the reason that this is moving in the direction that it is. I would like to start off by saying that I'm going to turn it over to her. I'm going to do a couple of goals, but basically let you know that, our 501c3, we've been very busy behind the scenes. I've been pretty busy writing grants, and to date, we have received $135,000 this year for this business development incubator and hub. So we work really hard. We've been doing this this is our third year. We talk about it, we've dreamt about it, and it is taking shape. So we are very excited. This funding really is crucial to bringing in a staff member and to help us, provide consultants. And you'll hear a little bit more about where that funding is going. And it wouldn't be possible without you believing in us and just kind of getting us going. So we'll start off with this. Our Small Business Development Incubator really is empowering entrepreneurs and strengthening our local economy. Our goals are, to have inclusive access, equitable training, diverse growth, and scaling support while having strategic connections for our entrepreneurs. So I'll talk a little bit about each of them very quickly. Inclusive access, we talk about building a bicultural materials to bridge that language and cultural gaps. The equitable training that we are going to talk about is expert-led. It's support and entrepreneurial education. What do we say when we talk about diverse growth? Empowering entrepreneurs from all backgrounds to fuel local development. Scaling support. Somebody might need to start a business. Somebody may need to close a business. Somebody has issues with a business. Somebody needs to do something with a business. That's where we come in, helping businesses grow beyond the startup phase or at the startup phase. And then the strategic connections. That is very important to us because it's really linking businesses to capital, insurance, and financial tools. I like to see us as connectors. We connect. We have great partnerships throughout Washington County and beyond, and it really is leveraging those connections that we have to kind of pull. We know we can't do it all, and that's where we just bring in our team of supporters to help folks along the way. Next slide, please. So since the launch of our Business Development Incubator, we have continued to deliver impactful services, technical assistance, and events that foster growth and opportunity for local entrepreneurs with an average, and this is just from March, with an average of 4 to 5 individuals served daily. We've supported over 200 community members by connecting them with vital business resources and guidance. And with that, I'm also going to let Ceci talk about the work that is being done with our Business Development Incubator and Hub.
Thank you, Claudia. Share a little bit more about our outcomes, and also part of our outcomes is offering one-on-one technical support and assistance to our local entrepreneurs based on their needs. And we support them where they are. Some of them are starting a business. Some of them are already ready to expand, or others are ready just to explore other venues or other opportunities. And so what we have done in the past few months, 3 months or 4 months that I've been working with our entrepreneurs, we have done I have supported 86 small businesses, and this is delivering one-on-one technical assistance. Also help for 5 businesses starting up. These are businesses like that are doing house cleaning services, construction, and home-based childcare here in our local community. And I will share one of the stories. Not only we have done services for small business entrepreneurs to start a business or offer a training, but also to help them navigate the system in itself with the Department of Business State Department in state of Oregon. One participant came to me and said that she was receiving letters from IRS saying that she owed $70,000 and she did not know why. And so I helped her navigate, and we find out that she had her business that she opened, and she paid a lot of money to someone else to open her business. And they opened a corporation, and they had 100 shareholders in her corporation, and she was in the payroll system when she barely started a business, and she's the owner and registered the business under her name, but she didn't even perform the business. Her husband was doing the work. And so it was very like, wow. I was like, this shouldn't be happening. And this is it's her name. And so I was like, no, we need to go back to IRS. We need to go back and track everything. And luckily, we're out now. We submitted all the documentation that is needed to make sure that is dissolved and perhaps deviate from a corporation to LLC. So those are kind of things that are happening with our small businesses, and the support that I've been able to do. I offer the services bilingual or Spanish or English. So I happen to speak Spanish, so I was able to help with her one-on-one. So that was very like, oh my gosh, this shouldn't be happening. So with this service, with this funding and the services we have provided, we've been able to help not only startup businesses, but also businesses that have a lot of other challenges, not knowing the system. So we thank you for all of the support that you have given the Fort Scott Cornelius Chamber. Also, just want to highlight one really important event that we had in collaboration with the West Tualatin Habitat for Humanity. We did the first local business exchange, vendors fair exchange, and this event happened in June 5th, if you could. Yeah, thank you. This event happened in June 5th inside the Cornelius Public Library in the Direct Learning Center. And we had about 45 participants, 16 businesses, government sector, and nonprofit organizations, including our local businesses. And we just want to highlight the support that also the City of Forest Grove and City of Hillsborough gave us, as well as the other nonprofits, Habitat for Humanity, and the Professional Business Development Group, and the local businesses. So it was a really good event where businesses had the opportunity to showcase their services and build relationships and connection with local government, nonprofit, and other businesses, local businesses in the area. So that was wonderful to see the collaboration and also for them to promote their services. And another story, out of that, one of the businesses that participated got a contract with West Tualatin Habitat for Humanity, which is amazing because that's exactly what we wanted as a result. We want them to partner, we want them to stay local, buy local, support local, which is part of our philosophy for the Business Development Incubator. And if you can, another slide, please. Thank you so much. And just a little bit more about the training and events coming up, training that we have offered and events coming up. In August, trainings that are coming up are more training for small entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs. And this is really wonderful because Elizabeth was a graduate from Forest Grove High School, and now she just graduated from the University of Oregon, and she was part of our Chicas program when I used to work with Adelante Mujeres. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. She just graduated with a degree on advertising, and I don't know what else she mentioned. She has her bio. And so she is offering a training about advertising, and I just, 360, right? The full circle. That's what we want. We want to create local talent, and we want them to stay here. And now she's coming back, and now she's offering her services. Fabulous. I can't wait. August 7, any of you are welcome to stop by. And August 19, we start another series of trainings for entrepreneurs, the 19th, the 26th, and September 2nd. These trainings will be partnership with U.S. Bank, our local U.S. Bank. And also we have other events coming up, and this is a partnership with Zesty Food Carts. It's a multicultural business expo. We want to, again, start building those stronger relationships with our business sectors, our community, and just making sure that they feel supported and that we are here to support everyone. As we all know, we're living in very difficult times. And so the more we support each other, the more we collaborate, the more we help each other during these difficult times, we're gonna make it happen. So you are all invited. Save the date. September, it's also coming a wonderful opportunity where we also be inviting our stakeholders, small business, nonprofits. We're also partnering with Habitat for Humanity again to do that lunch roundtable community session. More to come, and you'll hear more about that. Next. So thank you so much for all your support and also ongoing investments that you guys have made. And it truly has made an impact, as I already shared, how critical and important is the network. How critical and important is that we are here with our community and continue building that infrastructure to help them during these difficult times to be strong, to be resilient, and support our local economy. Thank you so much for everything that you have done for us. And if you have any questions.
Yeah, and before we start the questions, just to kind of recap a couple of things, the story that Ceci talked about with regards to Juanita and the IRS, that was pretty massive. We have a lot to cover, and we want to get it done in 15 minutes. That is truly the magic that happens when we have the opportunity to have somebody that has the ability to navigate the system. And so, yes, this business was set up incorrectly and therefore set up in a way that really cost this really small business a heartache. And they navigated almost a year to the point where that has been resolved. We are good to go. She has been able to, Ceci was able to help, provide the documentation and help her walk through those channels. That's just one of the businesses. I mean, we've opened up several businesses throughout the year, but we also are serving 4 to 5 people a day that come in for little things or big things. So for us, this growth for us is really going to be more field support moving forward. Yes, we have folks in the office, but there's a lot of people that can't leave their businesses where we have to come to them. So that's like the next step that we're dreaming of. And also collaboration. We talk a lot about, we held these vital vendor fairs. Vendor fairs were very important for us, and we partnered with Habitat for Humanity because there's a lot of building going on. We want to make sure that our entrepreneurs have a shot at getting jobs so that we stay local. We've got a lot of companies that come in and tell us, oh yes, if we receive this contract, we're going to give back to the community $2 million or whatever. And nobody tracks that. It never happens. Well, we're here to make sure that it happens. So by doing this, knowing that there's a lot of new construction in Cornelius, we wanted to bring those builders, to that vendor fair and key stakeholders. So when you look at 545 folks that attended, it was very strategic about who we wanted to attend. Not only did we have builders and the city of Hillsborough, Cornelius, PDBG was there, we had folks who had companies that were in very different areas that could be contracted out. So that's very important for us. So this next series that we're doing is the listening session in partnership with West Habitat. That is more for an opportunity for stakeholders, large stakeholders, to work together. And what do we need from each other? How can we work together? How do we not reinvent the wheel? What can we maximize and bring community and amplify? All the things that need to happen. So, we're just getting going. We have helped quite a few businesses, 85, over 200 people come in now. We just opened up the hub in Cornelius. So we're just very grateful for this first year. And it's just steady and flowing and exciting. And the partnerships that we built with Washington County Economic Development and all of the contacts that we have, they're coming out this way now. So that's very exciting to see. So with that, we open up for any questions that you all may have.
I just want to
Thank
say,
you.
is it Ceci? Thank you so much for bringing your excitement and your enthusiasm. It was really good to hear the stories that you have to tell.
Thank you. I grew up in Forest Grove. I went to high school, so this is home. Any matter.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Congratulate you on your hard work.
Yeah, I just want to comment. This program is a daily reminder to me as my daughter's gone through the program. So how it has impacted her in a positive way through her young and thriving business. It's very appreciated, and I'm grateful for my predecessors for committing 3 years for the program.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Have a nice night. Okay, we are going to move on to item F on the agenda, which is public hearings, ordinances, and resolutions. We're going to start with Resolution 2025-43, adopting the Forest Grove Forward 2040 Vision Plan. And I'm going to, it looks like City Manager Jesse Vanderzanen, our Communication Manager Stephanie Fletcher are coming up to the table. And we have Sarah Singer Wilson from SSW Consulting on Zoom.
Hi, Mayor, members of the council, Jesse Vanderzanen, City Manager. I'm just here to give props to Sarah Wilson and her team, and also Stephanie Fleischer and Joyce, who is in the back, from the city, who have done, I think, really good work on this project. So I'm going to let, obviously, Stephanie present, but prior to getting started, I just wanted to recognize that, and I'll turn it over to Stephanie.
Thank you. So the 2040 plan was a large undertaking, I'm sure we're all aware. The entire process took over a year. Creating this plan is definitely a labor of love and included an extensive and inclusive community engagement process, volunteer steering committee, and multiple vision labs. The 2040 plan was created by the residents of Forest Grove, and we can't wait to get started. So with that, Sarah from SSW is here, and we can answer any of your questions.
Are there any questions? I guess I want to start with a comment. I want to echo what City Manager Vanderzanen said to Sarah, Joyce, Stephanie, Sarah's team. I made, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling great, but I made a lofty statement, I think, last summer at a Rotary update meeting about community engagement being the foundation of this process. And I think I probably well-deservedly probably scared staff. Like, what is Mayor Wenzel saying? Like, how many people can we engage? And I just think that the team really stepped up and they did it. And they showed up to multiple community events. They met people where they're at. They went into businesses in downtown. And I think that, I don't want to get off track of the 2040 plan, but then, come 8 months later and we had such a good attendance at the State of the City. I think that's all attributed to this communication team. That's really doing their part to meet people where they're at and bring people along with us. Like, the people are directing the council in ideas, goals, and anyway, so I just want to say I agree with City Manager Vanderzanen, and I just want to say thank you to Sarah and her team at SSW, and really, really, really thank you to Stephanie and Joyce, a two-man communication department that undertook a big challenge and succeeded. Okay, so any questions about the 2040 vision from council?
No, just echoing those words. I think you need to see at least the nods from all of us on this fantastic work. I'm looking forward to what we do, what we prioritize, how we spend our money to really flow out of this plan.
Okay, so there's no there's no questions. Just for like transparency, we've had some work sessions on this. We have done a lot of, I hope it's been transparent. And what we heard at the last work session is the community is ready for us to do the work, right? Like we've been talking about it for a year. We've done the engagement. So with that, is there a motion on the floor?
So moved.
I second.
Okay, resolution 2025-43 was moved by Councilor Schimmel and seconded by Councilor Martinez. Would we like to open it up for discussion? I don't see anyone's hand raised, but I just want to restate that the vision will help us with our budget, our goals, our objectives, and kind of guide us for a very good long-term strategic plan. I think that we did the work of engaging community members. And so I think, we have a really good foundation for where we're going. And now we just have to carry it out.
Yeah. Can I just?
Yeah, go ahead, Councilor.
I think maybe we should just reflect. I think we're also quiet because it's so good. It's such a good product, and I'm really happy with it. And I just, as we embark on what comes next, it is a foundation that I think is so solid and so well supported that when we build on top of it through a comprehensive plan update, through code amendments, it's going to be all the more stronger. So Thank you so much for all the work you did.
And if I could maybe add to what Councilor Falconer mentioned, this is the first time that Forest Grove has embarked on this type of plan. We do have a comprehensive plan. We have a transportation system plan. We have development codes. We have all those kinds of building blocks. But the city has never undertaken an effort to really try and tie all of those things together and to found that tie upon the community input and listening to what the community has to say, and then trying to kind of put together some vision, some goals, some actions, and some themes to try and capture that. And this is the first time that Forest Grove has done this. We've had a vision before, but it didn't look out as far as it does now. It was not as inclusive as this product is. And so I think, I know we kind of didn't mention much at the start, but I did want to kind of conclude with that. And also, in looking at this, it did take an enormous amount of work, and it wasn't just staff and it wasn't just Sarah. I know that the council also participated as well. And you encourage people to try and take the survey, you encourage people to get involved, and those things make a difference. That's really what helps tie this thing together and all the elements that are within it. So I also want to thank the council for your assistance in making sure that we did have not only really good community input, but also give us some guideposts along the way through work sessions and through consultation with boards and commissions to really kind of come up with a comprehensive product. So thank you as well.
Thank you, Jesse. Seeing no more hands, will the city manager please read the resolution by title only?
Resolution number 2025-43, resolution adopting the Forest Grove Forward 2040 Vision Plan.
And will the city recorder please call for a roll?
Council President Valenzuela?
Yes.
Councilor Schimmel?
Yes.
Councilor Falconer?
Yes.
Councilor Martinez?
Yes.
I believe Councilor Gustafson has dropped off the meeting. Mayor Wenzel?
Yes. And a vote of 5-0. Resolution 2025-43 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council. Thank you very much. Good night, Sarah. Thank you. Good night, Stephanie. Good night, Joyce. Thank you.
Good night. Thanks.
Okay, next up is Resolution 202544, authorizing the city manager to apply for a housing planning assistance grant from the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development. And we have Community Development Director, Senior Planner, Dan Reardon presenting.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the City Council, for the record, Dan Reardon, Senior Planner with the Community Development Department. And I'm pleased to be here before you this evening to present this grant opportunity from the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development, especially since it's directly related to your last agenda item, the vision statement. One of the key elements that was discussed as part of developing the vision statement and action plan was housing. And that's exactly what this agenda item deals with. So again, the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development is accepting applications for housing planning assistance grants through the Housing Accountability and Production Office, including grants specifically to update and prepare housing capacity analysis. And grant funding would be used to hire a consultant that has expertise in providing housing capacity analysis. Under Oregon administrative rules, most cities in Oregon are required to prepare and adopt an HCA. And our last housing needs analysis, which is essentially housing capacity analysis, was last adopted by the City Council in 2019, so it's getting a little dated. The Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development is currently working on new rules to reflect direction from the state legislature for addressing housing needs. The Land Conservation and Development Commission is expected to adopt new rules by December 2027. So the housing capacity analysis that would be developed under this grant would be in compliance with the rules that would be adopted at the end of by December 2027. The HCA is part of the city's comprehensive plan and generally includes the following elements: community demographic and socioeconomic analysis, kind of lay the groundwork. There's also an inventory of the city's existing housing stock. A key element of preparing a housing capacity analysis is identifying how much land is within the city's planning area, within the city limits and the urban growth boundary, and how much of that land that is zoned for residential development is actually developable. A lot of the land is constrained by things such as steep slopes or other natural resources. A new requirement that's that will be part of preparing a housing capacity analysis is a specific analysis of development-ready land. Because there is a lot of capacity out there on paper that could be developed, but if the property owner has no interest, say for instance annexing into the city for development, or the land is just being held as being land banked, it's really not development ready, or if it lacks sufficient infrastructure. And so this will drill down one layer further to take a look at our buildable land inventory and see exactly what is the development potential of that land. Another aspect of a housing capacity analysis is an assessment of recent residential development trends, what's happening in the housing market. So that's a new requirement, looking at market-based assumptions. And then there's also a new requirement related to the state's allocation of housing production targets for cities in Oregon, which were just released in last December. And so the housing capacity analysis will look at what the state has set as the target for Forest Grove and look at and balance and reconcile what our target is against how much land we have available to development to see if there is sufficient land zoned for residential development. And then finally, another part of the housing capacity analysis is an identification of measures to accommodate housing needs that would be looked at further as part of developing a housing production strategy, which is required after the city adopts a housing capacity analysis. I have a little bit more on the housing production strategy on an upcoming slide. Next slide, please. So in short, the housing capacity analysis assesses the future 20-year need for all housing types. This slide shows what those housing types are. It really runs the gamut of everything from your traditional single unit, market rates home, all the way to government-assisted housing, including housing for farm workers. And so it really is inclusive in terms of looking at what the needs are across a wide range of housing types. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, the housing capacity analysis includes balancing the supply of residential land identified in the buildable land inventory and the development readiness needs assessment with the housing need projection from the state. If there's insufficient land designated for residential development, there are a couple of things that can happen. One is that the city would be required to adopt land use efficiency measures to use the land it is zoned more effectively. So maybe increasing density, that's one way to address that issue. If the land use efficiency measures are insufficient, then the city could request that Metro amend the urban growth boundary to include lands identified within the city's urban reserve. But before that can happen, a formal concept plan has to be adopted by the city council for the urban reserve, identifying how that urban reserve area land would be potentially used. Next slide, please. The housing capacity analysis provides the factual basis for preparing a required housing production strategy. It is required under the Oregon Administrative Rules. The housing production strategy is due 1 year after the city adopts the housing capacity analysis. And so this is really the first step in getting to the housing production strategy aspect of how we meet housing needs in the community. Next slide. So one of the requirements for applying for a housing assistance planning grant from DLCD is a demonstration of city council support and adoption of a resolution indicating support and authorizing the city manager to submit the application is one way to demonstrate that level of support. And a resolution has been provided to the city council for your review and approval this evening. Next slide, please. If the grant is awarded, funds would be used for consulting services to prepare the housing capacity analysis. Grant applications are due by August 4th. After August 4th, the Department of Land Conservation and Development will review the applications. They expect to notify cities who've applied whether or not their request has been awarded in early September. So we should hear back from DLCD by early September. Assuming that our grant application, if submitted, is successful, the state Department of Land Conservation and Development will provide an agreement for the city to review and approve, and that will come back to city council. That would likely happen in September or October. And then once the agreement is approved, consultant selection would occur, and consultant selection will be expected by the end of December of this year. And then once the consultant's on board, grant projects must be completed by June 15th of 2027. Next slide, please. So the city's financial participation in this grant application would be in-kind staff support and materials. The estimated in-kind staff support is $20,000 in staff work and material budgeted through the Community Development Department's allocation for personnel and materials. The $20,000 in staff work comes out to about 8 hours of staff work on average per month during the duration of the project. The LCD will contract directly with the consultant, and no grant funds will be transferred to the city. Next slide, please. So in closing, staff recommends that the City Council approve the resolution granting authority to the city manager to apply for a housing planning assistance grant and to prepare and adopt the city's housing capacity analysis. That concludes the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Sorry that I wasn't muted and coughed in your presentation. Any questions, Councilor Schimmel?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I was curious, I'm trying to recover memory from 2019, whether in terms of the approach, if there was a technical advisory committee and a community advisory, or just one body, if you're going to take that approach again.
At least a technical advisory committee would be required. As part of the grant application, the LCD asks for a list of potential partners that would be engaged through the project, and those partners could provide representation to the technical advisory committee. So it would be inclusive and include more than just city staff and the Department of Land Conservation and Development, with an emphasis on housing providers and housing producers. There would also potentially be outreach more directly through focus groups and individual meetings with stakeholders, right? Housing. And also an emphasis this go around with the housing capacity analysis is engaging housing consumers. In the past, the housing needs analysis really only engaged housing producers. And so that's something that's new.
Any other questions of Dan? Okay, seeing none, what's the wish of the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, resolution 2025-44 was moved by Council President Valenzuela and seconded by Councilor Falconer. Let's move on to discussion. Any discussion on it?
I guess I would just say it's the perfect kind of thing to take advantage of state resources, and I'm really glad that we're doing that. And hopefully we'll get this award so that we can get moving on some really important work and not tax our staff too much.
I agree. I heard about this grant, I think in Washington County Coordinating Committee meeting or one of my meetings, and it was on my list to ask Jesse about a couple weeks ago, and then I saw it in the packet. So I think it's great, and we have a lot of work to do with our housing and our comprehensive plan and development codes and all that stuff. So I think this is a great opportunity as well. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none, Resolution 2025-44 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council on a vote of 5-0. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to Resolution 2025-45. This is an intergovernmental agreement with ODOT for grant funding for TV highway access management implementation strategy. And I think Dan might just stay up there. I don't see Community Development Director Brian Pohl, so I think it's Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll take this one as well since I'm up here already. And I'm really pleased to bring this project forward to the council. This is something that's been a long time in the making. This goes actually back to the 2022 East Forest Grove Safety Improvement Plan, and now we're starting to actually make some progress on implementing some of the projects identified in that plan. So since it's been a while since this has been to the council, I have a PowerPoint presentation just to provide some background and refresh memories. So back in 2022, the City Council adopted a resolution accepting the East Forest Grove Safety Improvement Plan for the Tualatin Highway corridor east of Quinn Street to the Forest Grove Cornelius boundary. The plan identifies priority projects intended to specifically improve pedestrian and bicyclist safety along the highway corridor. And one priority near-term project is preparing an access management strategy for the highway corridor. So the strategy will identify approaches for reducing the number of conflict points between pedestrian and bicyclists and motorized vehicles. It's a relatively short stretch of highway, but there are over 20 driveways and street intersections along the corridor, which create a number of conflict points between vehicles and pedestrians and bicyclists. And so approaches for reducing conflict points include consolidating driveways potentially and or restricting vehicle turning movements to right in, right out. There's some other ways to also reduce conflict points, but those are the primary two. So that will be evaluated as part of this project, and specific locations for reducing conflicts will be evaluated with input from potentially affected business and property owners, because of course that will affect the use of their property in some way. On July 10th, 2023, so about a year after, not quite a year after, the East Forest Grove Safety Improvement Plan was adopted, City Council adopted another resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for a grant from the Oregon Transportation and Growth Management Program to complete the strategy. The TGM program is a joint program between the Oregon Department of Transportation and the Department of Land Conservation and Development. And similar to the Housing Capacity Analysis grant, the requested grant for the Access Management Plan would pay for consulting services needed to prepare the strategy. Next slide, please. On September 28th, 2023, this is going back some time, the TGM program notified the city that the strategy was selected for grant funding, and the TGM program would provide $175,000 to the project. Since that time, the TGM program negotiated a statement of work with the consultant and also prepared the IGA that's before you this evening. The IGA was sent through the internal state review process through Salem, and it took quite a while. They have a number of projects that they had to review, and so just about a week and a half ago, back on July 2nd, the IGA was provided to the city for review. And we tried to get this to the city council as quickly as we could so we could advance the project forward, because the state can't issue a notice to proceed to the consultant until the IGA is signed by both parties, state and the city. So all tasks negotiated with the project consultant are described on the next two slides. They must be completed by April 2027. And city council's acceptance of the strategy is required by June of 2027. So a lot will be happening in 2027 between these two projects. Next slide, please. Statement of work negotiated with the consultant includes just general project management. Similar to the housing capacity analysis, a technical advisory committee will be established. The TAC will include staff from the consultant team, ODOT, DLCD, TriMet, Metro, and city staff from planning, engineering, and fire. Staff from Cornelius will also be invited to participate at their discretion. So this really is more of a technically oriented committee because of the work involved with this project in comparison to the housing capacity analysis, which has more of a policy and implications, broader implications. So public opportunities, however, will be provided to business and property owners through meetings and community open houses, and the consultant will also provide language translation assistance for the project. Next slide, please. In addition to just a general project management, we'll be preparing and implementing a project page on the city's website, either on the planning division's page or on the community page on the city's website. Work will involve completion of an existing conditions analysis, documenting the driveway access points and the turning movements. So there will be an evaluation done of how the access points are actually being used. And out of that, we will identify alternatives for evaluation. In addition, the project will include draft amendments for consideration, amending the Forest Grove Transportation System Plan and the Development Code. And the recommendations will be brought forward to the Planning Commission for review and City Council for acceptance. Slide. So grant funding is contingent on the city signing the IGA with the Oregon Department of Transportation. The IGA is attached to the resolution provided for Council's consideration this evening. Similar to most IGAs, it outlines both parties' commitments related to the project. And if approved, the resolution this evening would grant authority to the city manager to sign the IGA on the city's behalf. Next slide, please. So under the terms of the IGA, the city is obligated to provide ODOT with a cash contribution as part of our locally required match of $7,830. That will be added to the TGM allocation of $175,000, making the total project cost just under $183,000, and that's to ensure that there's adequate funding to complete the entire statement of work negotiated with the consultant and to do all of the analysis and draft the report for consideration by the city. In addition to the cash contribution, the city is obligated to provide $12,200 for in-kind staff support to the project. This is also included in the Community Development Department's budget for the next 2 fiscal years. The $12,200 comes out to about 6 hours on average of staff time per month. We'll likely overmatch. We typically do just as needs arise as going through the project. And staff support includes reviewing consultant work products, reviewing consultant invoices for payment by ODOT, participation in project meetings, community outreach, which tends to take the most time and resources, and launching and maintaining a project page on the city's website. And again, the allocation is budgeted specifically in the planning division's budget, which is funded through the general for personal services and operating expenses. In conclusion, staff recommends that the City Council approve the resolution granting authority to the city manager to sign the IGA with ODOT on the city's behalf and to prepare an access management implementation strategy for the TB Highway Corridor. This concludes the staff presentation. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions for staff?
I have a comment, and Mayor, I beg your pardon. I want to take this opportunity to extend some gratitude to a couple of staff folks related to this anyway. ODOT's already working on projects on that intersection, and in their diligence to improve safety, they disrupted safe pedestrian crossing east to west for people living along Quince. And I just want to extend my gratitude to Dan for meeting with those folks, listening and taking their concerns seriously, and also to Greg Robertson leveraging his capital with ODOT to make a call, and within 24 hours, a temporary safe pedestrian crossing was constructed. That's telling of stellar staff and with some standing at the state level. So my gratitude to both of you.
Councilor Schimmel.
Thank you, Counselor Schimmel and staff. Any other questions?
I just want to make a comment, Mayor Wenzel, if I may. I met Dan when I was part of the technical advisory committee, and I was working. We were subcontracted by JLA at the time. I was the community engagement director, and they reached out to us, and we conducted focus groups in Spanish, bilingual, and what I do remember. That Dan was the person that listened. He was the most kind person. I shared with him some pictures that I had brought from Chile, which, many say, oh, a third world country. But they have this great design that protects pedestrians, everyone. And some people around me dismissed it. But Dan reached out and said, may I see those pictures? And, that was just so wonderful at that moment. I was just feeling really bad that people just ignored it, something from a third world country. But Dan listened, and he wanted me to share those with him and to email them to him. And I appreciated that so much, Dan. I just, this is the moment to tell you that. Thank you.
Thank you. What's the wish of the council?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, resolution 2025-45 is moved by Council President Valenzuela and seconded by Councilor Martinez. Open for discussion. I guess I'll just, this project, I feel Dan's excitement about this because we've been working on it for years. This East Side Forest Grove Safety Improvement Project. So congratulations, Dan, on staying the course. And, this, I think it's just exciting. So I just want to say congratulations to you and to the rest of the staff. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of resolution 2, oh wait, will the city manager please read it by title only?
Resolution 2025-45, authorizing the city manager to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation for grant funding of the Tualatin Valley Highway Access Management Implementation Strategy.
Thank you, Jesse. All those in favor of making sure 2025-45, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none. Resolution 2025-45 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 5-0. Okay, and now, Dan, you are free to go home. Have a good night.
Bye.
Okay, next up is Resolution 2025-46, extending the term of the cable television franchise. I'm not going to read it all. I'm just going to turn it over to our Assistant City Manager and Finance Director, Mr. Paul Downey. Hi, Paul.
Councilors, this is a request from the Metropolitan Area Communications Commission, what we call MAC. They want to extend the franchise, television cable franchise, which expires on June 30th, 2025. They want to extend it to June 30th, 2026, to allow MAC and Comcast additional time to complete negotiating the franchise renewal through an informal process. They have provided the agreement for us, and they provided a staff report that discusses the reasons why. MAC has been working with Comcast, but they haven't yet been successful on informal negotiations. They want to try the informal negotiations before they have to go through the formal process, because the formal process has dates, deadlines, process, and time, and the informal process is more flexible for them. And so it's not unusual to get an extension request. The last time the franchise expired in 2014, we got a request to extend it for a year through 2015 so they could complete the negotiation process. So this is similar to what they did last time it was reviewed. And all cities belong to MAC have to approve this extension for it to be effective. And any questions you have?
Thank you, Paul. Any questions? Seeing none, what is the wish of the council?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Resolution 2025-46 was moved by Council President Valenzuela and seconded by Councilor Martinez. Open for discussion. Hearing none, will the city manager please read the resolution by title only?
Resolution 2025-46, extending the term of the cable television franchise with Comcast of Oregon 2, Incorporated, to enable the Metropolitan Area Communications Commission to complete the informal renewal process.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving Resolution 2025-46, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none, Resolution 2025-46 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a 5-0 vote. Thank you, Paul. Okay, next up is item G on our agenda, which is council communications. I'm going to start with Councilor Martinez, please.
Okay. So let's see, I don't have anything for Sister City. We meet on Wednesday. As far as the Forest Grove Rural Fire Department, let's see, real quickly, we had 2 new board members start. One actually was there, Ben Otto, the other one was not. He had to work, so his name escapes me. They've been asked to take on more responsibility and take it off of staff at the fire department, so the board will do their notes and the agendas and that sort of thing. Let's see, they're working on volunteers and getting that squared away because some volunteers weren't really as accessible or available as they had wanted. So they're working on a schedule and to work with them. And I know I'll just talk about the board stuff and be done.
Mayor, you're muted.
I saw my little blue thing popped up. Sorry about that. That was my first mistake with the mute, so that's good. Anyways, Councilor Falconer, go ahead.
Oh, I'll be real short. I'll meet JWC this week and then HLB next week. So I actually have no committee report since our last meeting.
Thank you. Councilor Schimmel.
I could give a report on the News End committee, but I'm going to yield that to the mayor's enthusiasm. I'll instead speak to the EDC. We met this last week and we touched on the 2040 vision plan or the draft. So they're eager to really dig into a lot of economic development related aspirations. So they'll be combing through that and looking forward to the next round of applications for the building improvement and storefront grants.
Thank you, Councilor Schimmel. Council President Valenzuela.
Thank you, Mayor. The Library Commission will be having their meeting this coming Wednesday, so I have nothing to report on that. However, the Community Development Policy Advisory Board, I have a couple of very important items to report, but I'll be brief. We worked to approve a letter to preserve this funding that is so essential for the communities that we serve. The CDBG and home advocacy letter was reviewed by us and it was approved to be sent to our representatives because it is on the chopping block. And so I don't know if you all know what that means, what this advisory board does, but we approve grants. We help seniors that have homes in need of repair. I know everyone should kind of take care of themselves, but that's not the way it is. Some people just can't help themselves, and they need assistance. So, unfortunately, we are alarmed about this, but we are asking for the help from our representatives who had been advocating for us, for our state. The other important item here is the documents being reviewed to be in compliance with new federal requirements. And that's another alarming situation. And the Board of Commissioners consider rescinding the county's equity resolution on 6/17 to comply with the new federal requirements, but it was pulled from the agenda and they issued a statement on June 24th. So basically, all the federal contracts for year 25-26 have been paused for Washington County until a new resolution and order is approved. And we were very alarmed to hear from Chair Harrington. Whoever signs these letters, these proclamations, or any document and does not comply with the federal government, it could be criminally charged. So I don't know why people are quiet. I don't know why people are not alarmed by this. But they did issue a statement, and this is going to be reviewed again, a new resolution on July 22nd, on the July 22nd meeting. So that's, I'm sorry, I meant to be brief, but these things just kind of are so important and upsetting and need to be shared with the community. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. I guess I'll wait for my comments later, but thank you, Council President. City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. We have been advised by Adelante that there may not be a farmer's market this Wednesday due to the excessive heat. So I would encourage you that if you have plans to go to the market, please check the website and see if it's still going on. Also, Waste Management is looking at changing their schedule just slightly so they can take advantage of the cooler hours. So their pickup is going to be slightly earlier in the morning than it normally otherwise would be. That's authorized under their agreement with the city. So a couple other things. The building improvement grants from the Urban Renewal Agency that the board approved, the contracts have all been executed. And so you may start seeing some improvements in those projects in downtown. All those are finalized. The Public Works Operations Building is the contract there has been finalized as well. We're getting pretty well through design on that project, and they're looking to break ground in maybe late August, early September. That's a pretty big project for Public Works. So another kudos to Greg Robertson and also Crystal for really shepherding that design and putting together a building that works. Summer reading, I have some good news to report. So far we have 1,474 kids that have signed up, and that beats the record that was set clear back in 2017 of 1,328. So we've achieved it by quite a bit. And so good job to the library in terms of getting the word out, getting lots of participation for the summer reading program. It's been great so far. And then last, just happy to report that on B Street, there was a section of the trail there, it was about 250 feet, where there were some tree roots that had led to portions of the trail sticking up, and it created a pretty bumpy situation. That has been fixed. The pavement was removed, the roots were removed, and it's all been repaved, and so it's nice and smooth. There was some conversation about that at the Budget Committee, so I just wanted to report that came out of the Trail Maintenance Fund, and that project is done. So good job, Ann.
Great.
Mayor, may I ask a question of the city manager?
Sure.
Jesse, I hear appeals from downtown businesses about the not just the status of the glow up, but notifications of parking closures. Is there going to be more parking closures, or what's the message to our businesses?
So we're working with the contractor. In fact, I spoke with Public Works Director today about trying to make sure that the notifications with the respective business owners about when work is going to occur is better timed. And so there can be some level of advance notice if there is going to be a parking closure for a particular spot, or if there is not, or if there is going to be a sidewalk closure, or if there is not. It has been a bit of a challenging project to implement, in the sense that It's a lot of small areas instead of one particular area, and so the impacts tend to be isolated, but also numerous. And it's been a difficult project in terms of just implementing. But we are working with the contractor on a better notification process for those businesses. Just in terms of the overall project, some of the outlets that the tree lights will plug into, there was some concern about the location of those. Those have all been moved to a better location. And there still is concrete work that is going on. As far as the trees, with this really hot weather, we are looking toward putting the trees in either later in the summer or in the early fall. If we plant the trees now during the hot weather, there is a high probability that they will not survive, even with the drip system associated with them. So we are working with the business owners about that just to make sure that the notifications are made. In most cases, there is access. When it's not being worked on, we're putting cones around it with either some tape or some type of notification, but we are trying to preserve parking and access, pedestrian access, whenever we can. But I'll take that back to the project team, Counselor, and try to make sure that we do increase those notifications and do a better job there.
Thank you, Jesse. Any other questions for the city manager before my report? Okay, seeing none. The transportation, I don't know, I mean, hopefully as we're all following this, but the transportation package did not pass the legislature. And so where do we go from here? There's talk that, Governor Kotek is working on a special session. But again, that would be like a temporary small fix and would need statewide comprehensive, robust action by 2027. So we're kind of trying to figure out what that failing transportation package, like I think how it impacts our cities, it's going to impact the county, like ODOT. I mean, this is a huge issue, I think, for the state of Oregon. And then, so in a somewhat similar conversation, and we had a presentation today at WCCC about Washington County's resilient transportation funding options. They're trying to provide stable funding and, how we're going to do that. And so there's some questions about accountability of, and then the options for how to tax, do these work? There's a message that's important for us to work together on transportation funding. And concerns, that came out from the mayors were like protecting the funding source. That's one of the things I brought up is that we had MISTIP, which Oregon voters said, hey, this is money that, we're going to use for transportation projects. We're going to spread it out through the 4 districts. And then in the last few years, Washington County has had budget issues, so they pull it to use for the general fund. So anyways, I'll keep you up to date with that. Metro also presented on some housing things, rail, but I want to save some time for some other things. So last week I received talking about what Council President Valenzuela was mentioning about federal funding. It's interesting to me. I'm curious if the county, and I'm going to be honest, I had a Washington County's chair plus mayor meeting, and I was going to meet with Chair Harrington, but it was an in-person meeting and I did not want to go since I'm under the weather. And then she's going to be out of town, but Multnomah County has joined a lawsuit about these federal funding and the hold on that. So I'm just curious if that's an option for Washington County. But another entity or organization that's feeling the effects of federal funding freeze is Forest Grove School District. They received, hang on, I'm going to get onto my email. On Monday, so I think this was probably, let's see, what was the date? On July 1st, they what was that?
Monday the 7th?
No, it was the week before that.
Oh.
Because I got the email on the 3rd. But so they received, the Trump administration announced a freeze on federal K-12 education funding for fiscal year 2026. The freeze affects several critical programs. Title 1C, which is migrant education, 3A, which is English language acquisition, 4B, which is 21st Century Community Learning Centers. That's our after-school programs. And Title 2A and 4A, which support effective instruction, professional development, and after-school opportunities. So at this point, the school district is trying to figure out what that means. It's either going to mean a loss of, from my reckoning of being a teacher, it's either going to mean a loss of programs that support students, support our youth, or it's going to be a loss of staff who also support youth. In my opinion, the only way that I see it is it hurts kids. And kind of talking about this uncertainty with some federal legislation and federal words and policies, Counselor Schimmel brought up that we went to Japan, to New Zen, Japan. This is the first time. I've gone to Japan 3 times. I've hosted people from Japan, from New Zen, every single time that they've come in my 10 years. So students and adults. This is the first time that anyone has ever talked to me about our federal administration. A lot of fear. In August, the Trump administration said they're going to raise tariffs, I think by 20 or 25%. It's affecting, the Sister City program started for economic benefit between NEC in New Zen, Japan, and Merrick's in Forest Grove. And so we've created this relationship of, economic, foundation strategies benefit. And now there's a fear of what's going to happen for the members of New Zen. So I think right now I got an email today from the Portland mayor about loss of funding. The federal funding freeze for the Forest Grove School District affects them by $2 million. So I just want to keep you updated with that. I think we're going to see a lot of, we need to come up with a plan of how to make sure we can meet the needs of our most vulnerable community members without wavering on values. Our job is to protect the Constitution. And the 14th Amendment is basically DEI. It says that all members, everybody has the right to due process under the law, right? To these rights. So I'm definitely worried about that. But I also want to give a shout out to the Sister City committee. We had a great time in New Zen. I think all the homestays did good. We created more relationships, memories, had great conversation. So that was a really good trip. And I think I'll end it with that. So I just want to say thank you to the community of New Zen. Thank you to the Sister City Committee for organizing it. And I'm going to adjourn this meeting at the City Council, but we have a work session and a URA following this.